Smart borders means putting a lot of money into a surveillance system that will not, for example, solve the issue of overstayers like the Commission was saying, and the question is anyway whether overstayers are such a big problem. And the Commission now says it also wants to use the whole database to fight terrorism, but that's a whole new debate now. Originally it was supposed to cover the overstay issues, like people who stay longer than they're allowed to stay in the European Union, and now we see that the same instrument is just being used for something else without any idea, without studies, that this actually would be an efficient and effective measure. We will know where people have entered the European Union and when and where they have left the European Union, but that's all. The question is, what do you do with this data? Do you then start to make profiles about, for example, when people have entered the EU too often or what? I mean, that's then the question, like very normal travel behavior, or like, for example, trips that I might take, and I'm traveling also a lot outside the European Union, might be then suspicious because I'm too much outside of the European Union. Or what? So this is really much the question, what do you do with this data? Also, who has access to those data, and with regard to which crime? Because when the Commission talks, for example, about serious crime, then it's not very clear what exactly that entails. There is usually the fear that this might even include not so big crimes, more related even to very small scale drug possession, which is not exactly the same as terrorism. My impression is that we're just creating new systems, more data collecting systems, without ever having a real idea about whether this is actually helpful. There's never any impact assessments, never any studies that show this measure would be good or this measure wouldn't be good. It's all about creating new measures and new collecting systems, whereas we don't so much have an issue about having too little data. The question is, how do we use it and how do we cooperate across borders? And that is something that the Commission is currently not putting a lot of attention to. With regards to who benefits, like industry-wise from that, we see that very few companies, very few big companies from few member states would actually benefit from that, putting up all the systems, providing all the hardware, but also the software, which will be super expensive for all the member states. Some member states already have their individual, so to say, smart border system, which would then need to be made compatible with the overall EU system. So this means indeed investing a lot of money for a long time, but this goes to specific, very few companies, and it's not going to create a European-wide boost.